You're listening to Represent, the Queer Musical Theatre podcast. My name is Dr. James Lovelock, and I'm an academic and a huge musical theatre fan, exploring the representation of all things queer in the musical theatre industry. Our guest today is the wonderful and versatile actor, dancer and superstar swing Owen McHugh, who recently appeared in the fabulous Why Am I So Single at the Garrick Theatre. We discuss what the show means to us and how it created an inclusive space for its sparkling ensemble. And we also explore some of Owen's other projects, including But I'm a Cheerleader and Like a Rat. There's also a very detailed analysis of how to gender bins and curtains when rehearsing for a West End show. As always, you can follow us on your favourite podcast platform, and don't forget to share this episode on social media. Let's get started.
Hello, I'm Owen. I use he, him, they, them pronouns, whatever you fancy. And I'm a creative performer and happy to be chatting to you today.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this because you've been in all my favourite shows.
Oh, that's...
Yeah. So this series, I'm trying to kind of look into the idea of queer gain and what we gain from shows that have queer protagonists or shows where there are queer creatives leading the work and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And you've been involved recently in one of my very favourite shows, which is Why Am I So Single? And I wonder if you would like to start off just by telling us a little bit about that show and your role in it.
Oh, yeah, of course. So I came to the show first in 2023. In the summer, I did the workshop for it. So that was my first kind of experience. And it was like 5 weeks. We were in Deptford Lounge. We were kind of like on our own, just playing, being creative. And it was just the most fun and beautiful kind of experience, and we all hoped, I think, that something more would happen with it. And like, really, I mean, me personally, from first reading it and hearing it, and really believed that it was something special. And then I did the show as well then when it came to the Garrick last year, so 2024. And so yeah, I was in the first workshop, I was an ensemble member, and then did the show and I was a swing, an offstage swing. So there was 3 of us who were swings, and then also Ebony, who was our resident choreographer. She was an emergency swing as well. So I guess fell in love with the show. It's been my favourite job that I've done, really. The most freeing and fun, silly, but important as well. I think it's kind of has that real dichotomy, I don't know if that's the right word, but it kind of celebrates all the silliness, theatricality of typical big fancy shows, but then also has this heart of friendship and self-acceptance and self-discovery, which I think is a really lovely thing to go hand in hand, because really in life I feel like they do, and especially within queer community, I think that that's something that is there all the time. You know, you can be vulnerable, and a lot of queer people, I think you can be around each other and express your vulnerability and like understand each other, but at the same time in the next moment be silly and chaotic and fun. And so I think that the show really celebrated that. So yeah, that's the start of the show. There's a lot I could say about it.
It's a wonderful show, and you know, I think you've just articulated there something that I hadn't been able to put my finger on before about why it is that I love that show so much and what makes it so different, and that idea of kind of the vulnerability and the silliness, those things together. I love that.
I think it was so. I mean, it was really led by Toby and Lucy, and then also Ellen and Joe Baton and all the creatives, and I think, and also like the way it was brought together. So I think that having like so many queer people involved, so whether that's stage management, crew, dressers, cast, company, in general creatives, I think, and even if people weren't queer, they were like massive allies, and also maybe had their own like own things within their life, maybe they'd felt othered in other parts of their life. So I think that everyone came to it with this shared understanding, like who they were, and therefore the actual job, like the environment that cultivated was one of kind of accepting people for who they were. And then, so that was there. And then also I think, like right from the workshop, like I remember Lucy, who directed, in the workshop, she, like, the first week was a lot of discovery, obviously, because at that point, I think they'd done an R&D maybe, and they had the music and stuff, but it wasn't all complete. Like, Disco Ball wasn't, I don't think, there until like the third or fourth week of the workshop. So it was like being worked on. So we were kind of all, we did like so many fun creative exercises where I think Lucy was like, right, we need to commit to the bit. So that was like, we need to be silly and be unafraid, because at the end of the day we were playing bits of furniture. And in the work,
that was the best bit.
Yeah, it was like, I mean, in the workshop I don't think they had established what that vocabulary would be for the ensemble. Like, they knew it was an ensemble show. They knew they wanted people around to kind of bring the story to life, of Nancy and Oliver's flat, but the way that they did that, they weren't quite sure. So we were kind of really experimental. And I remember we had like different film genres that we like had to take. And then, I don't know, it would be like Six the Musical in the style of an opera. Do you know what I mean? Like, like being very like silly and playful to kind of get our guard down. And then that also happened when we did the production that then was in the West End. And I don't know, I think that leadership of that from the team really infused into us, and like, and also just they are the best people. Like, I really like the creatives on this, all of them, like, and Lucy and Toby, I think that they really care about it like so much, and they care about the people in front of them, but they also like aren't precious, you know, they're happy to have involvement from people or like ideas. And I think that makes it a very open environment, and one that people can play in, because it's not, you know, like, you need to do this, you need to be this, and like, if you're not, then it's a big stress. It's like, well, we're making a musical, it's fun. It is a lot of stress and it is hard work, but it's not, you know, I think they just have a really good grasp.
And there's a sort of thing about mess that I love about queer productions, that they're not, you know, they don't have to be too neat. It doesn't have to be the case that, you know, this person moves here and now you have to find this spot on the floor and that kind of thing. It feels like there's something about being queer, and I don't know whether this is true of everybody. I mean, I'm sure it isn't, but for me, I love being in environments where everybody gets to have their say and everyone gets to suggest things and to make things together. It's funny that you said about doing Six in the style of opera, because I haven't had many industry jobs, but the first industry job I had was with Showstopper, the improvised musical.
Oh, I love Showstopper. Yeah, so where did you do that?
In early days, very, very early days, I went up, I was their pianist, and I went up to the Edinburgh Fringe, did the Hen and Chickens and the King's Head. And then once it got, I was a school teacher at the time, so once it got too big, I kind of handed it over to somebody who could actually play the piano.
Oh, I'm sure you're brilliant. But
I loved that sort of playfulness, and I think also there's a thing that I've discovered with my own theatre company when improvisation is done by queer people, it becomes very different. It's not about being clever. It's not about being the funniest in the room. It's about there's something different that happens in these sorts of situations.
Definitely.
So that really inspires me. That's one of the things that you use in the workshop.
It definitely was. Also, Showstoppers, I have seen a couple of times at the Edinburgh Fringe through, like, because I'm from near Edinburgh. Yes. So I loved that you did that. That's amazing.
Yeah, we're going back a very long time. This would be 2008, 2009. Actually.
Well, it is amazing. I think it's so much fun. And that you're right, like that kind of freedom. And I think maybe, I mean, this might be going very deep dive, but I think with queer people, because like the structure of life doesn't seem as pre-planned, maybe it's like the heteronormative ideal of, you know, I guess you have a partner, you get a dog, you get a house, you get married, like, and they're all beautiful, wonderful things if that's what you want, and plenty of queer people do that too. But I think that the way that maybe, I think also like creative people and queer people, like that kind of merge. So kind of that combination of someone allows for a bit more of a free-spirited approach to life, less structured, more open.
Yes.
And so therefore a bit more daring maybe. You know, so I think that's...
Absolutely.
And I think that's a really amazing kind of thing, which was, definitely kind of instilled in Why Am I So Single, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I talk a lot, and I think I've spoken on the podcast about this before, about this idea of queer orientation or orienteering, as I like to think of it. And the idea that this straight path or the heteronormative path that you've mentioned is kind of the thing that's lit up in big lights. You see it represented everywhere as you're growing up.
Yeah, very much.
And so as queer people, we're often having to kind of find our own path. I always talk about it being like a forest and finding your way from the middle of the forest out of the forest. And the straight path's all lit and is in front of you. But if you don't want to go where that leads, you have to create your own path.
Going through the bushes tangled. And definitely, that makes sense.
Oh, there's so many things we could talk about going through the bushes, but we won't. But yeah, it's, you know, that idea of trying to create new things, and also I think the thing that I've been thinking more and more about is trying to find ways to light those paths up for other people that might want to follow them. Yeah,
I think that's like, when you said that, you know, the lit path and then the one that's not so clear, is I guess like all these explorations, like queer theatre or queer life, just I guess being someone who's queer, it can like shine the torch a bit for someone who's coming behind you. Do you know what I mean? And I think that is really a beautiful thing to do. And sometimes with people, I guess that's unintentional. It's just them existing as who they are. But most of the time, I think it is a conscious thing, because even if you're existing as an openly queer person, maybe you're not so rigid in your gender expression, maybe like that's a brave thing to do, to leave the house and be that way, or hold hands with a certain person as you walk down the street. That's something that is, someone else might see that and see themselves in it. And so I think that theatre is obviously a big expression of that, because it's visible and it's art and it's something that people are going to watch, whereas like, but it can exist in so many different facets of people's lives, you know. But I like that analogy of the, you know, the straight path being very well lit and then everyone else kind of having to, I guess, make their own
I find it really applies for musical theatre as well, and it's been one of the things, I mean, one of the reasons for doing this research, this series in particular, is I worry that there are so many less queer musicals being produced than there were perhaps 5 years ago. And I think they are still out there, but they're not always in the places you expect to find them. They're certainly at the moment not in the West End, apart from Why Am I So Single? And so that's why these pieces are so important, and trying to find a way to keep these pieces alive for other people who didn't get to see them in the theatre, that to me is really important. And so hopefully by us talking about things like Why Am I So Single, and perhaps a bit later But I'm a Cheerleader, and these sorts of shows on the podcast, is that hopefully people will be inspired to go and find out more about them.
Definitely. I think it's obviously making shows is a I don't claim to know exactly how all of that happens, but it's a year. Obviously, it takes years and it's a lot of money and things like that. And so I understand it's difficult. And I guess people want to sometimes put money on like a safe bet in some ways. But I think the inspiring thing and brave thing about, you know, when certain, you know, producers and directors and creative people in power can like put their power and presence into ideas that are gonna maybe not at first speak to the masses but be important. And I think if you look at TV and film, obviously there's so many genres and so much output all the time, but it's like, it's quite obvious that people want nuance and they want modern stories, and they want to showcase other like experiences than just like you know, the ones that we've been told for years. And so I think it's like, oh, the audience is very much there for these things. It's just the, like, taking a risk to do it. So yeah, I hope that can happen more, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're interested in LGBTQ plus representation in musical theatre, check out our website www.queermusicals.com for lots more information about musicals with LGBTQ plus characters. So one of the things I loved about Why Am I So Single was that the ensemble, as well as having sort of characters that popped in and out, got to be furniture. And I thought that was a really joyous thing. And also, as one of the swings, you must have got to play most of the furniture at some stage.
I did. I can't remember exactly. I think I did fridge, bin, plant, coat rack, lamp,
curtain.
I didn't do curtain. Callum, Caitlin, and did Ebony do curtain? I'm not sure if Ebony did curtain, but Callum and Caitlin, they held the curtain strong when Jemima or Ran weren't there.
Yeah,
they curtained it up. But did I do anything else? I don't think so. I think they were the bits of furniture that it was, which was hilarious.
But the great thing as well about bits of furniture is that they are non-gendered, which means they can be played by anybody. And that was one of the things I loved about Why Am I So Single, was that the swings got to go on for, you know, pretty much whatever.
Yeah,
whatever I think part you felt.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, I think like it was really, I guess that is such a freeing thing because even like in the process, like learning music, for example, Joe Bayton, who was the musical supervisor, and then Chris Maswell, who's MD, like the parts were like split into 1, 2, 3, 4. So it was rather than like soprano, alto, tenor, bass, and like that just makes it so much straight away like very non-gendered. And so like things like that were amazing. And then when it was come to like deciding who was going to cover which roles as a swing, we had like priorities, and I guess like our vocal type maybe established those priorities or whatever, which of course that's like your anatomy might put you in certain places for certain characters. But also because this show had such freedom and silliness, and like, you know, we all played these kind of like guys from Grindr. We all played kind of sweet boys who were trying to be flirty. You know, we all played these characters regardless of our gender in the show. So it meant that actually even those parts which are gendered characters, they're kind of a pastiche or like a, you know, and so then, and bits of furniture, doesn't matter what gender you are, you can bring your skills and yourself and your acting, you know, like playfulness to it. So I think that is something that I loved, and something that I think is really useful in the industry is, you know, like using people for their skills and their ability. And like as a swing, you know, I felt very much in Why Am I So Single, you know, if we were doing a lot of different characters, we could do different accents, or, you know, like, so then therefore if I was singing it versus if Caitlin was singing it, we might be in different octaves. But then like the thing is, like if me or Callum was singing it, like yes, we, you know, might both have more similar voices anatomically, but like Callum has an amazing voice, like range that is like probably able to go way higher than mine. So like, you know, just because we're like assigned the same gender at birth, like it doesn't mean that necessarily our voices will do exactly the same thing. So
absolutely.
So therefore, like, it's just like, oh, you have swings, these people who are really hopefully like able to cover a lot of different bases. Let's use them in the most useful and interesting way. And so rather than okay, it must be bound by gender, you know, and I think that was because of the way the show was structured and stuff, we could do that. And it was, yeah, just, I loved it. It was very fun to do, to be all the different bits of furniture.
And the movement as well, and the choreography, that wasn't gendered either. So.
No, it was like, and Ellen Kane, Queen Ellen Kane, who I love, and like Michael Naylor as well, who's just the most like filled with sunshine, like as a person. They both did the workshop. And then also then Ebony came on as resident choreographer, she is just like the best, so funny, so great. And so like the team choreographically, I think it was like intense. Like I feel like Ellen is so amazing with intention and why something is happening, why movement is happening. And so really what informed that was the story, or how we felt as a character, rather than like being gendered, because there really was no reason for it to be. Yeah, and also I guess the characters were playing like a bin or a curtain. You could be like, I'm a very masculine bin, or you could be a feminine bin. You could be any type of curtain. You could be like a big heavy drape that feels very like I am a mask drape, or you could be like, I'm a chiffon curtain who feels very femme. Like that's silly, but that is, we all ran around, I remember, like in the rehearsal room, and we were like, okay, right, you're like a normal person walking around, okay, now you're like a number 1 curtain, now you're a number 10 curtain, like getting more curtain, and like how would you move it? And like honestly, the way that people like reacted to being bits of furniture was so funny and unique. And so like definitely we were, I think, encouraged to be ourselves and to lean into like creativity rather than boys here, girls here.
Did people, when they cast the ensemble as the furniture, did that happen through the workshops?
Well, in the workshop, like in the one that we did in 2023, I think we kind of swapped around a few times. Like we obviously didn't have the costumes, so it was all like physicality. I do remember some people had things, like Jemima was a magazine, so she had a magazine and was like, but I was a lamp in the workshop. Yeah. But it kind of, we played with what they might be, but I think it was a quicker process, so it kind of stuck as certain things. And then when we came back to the actual next production, like some of those furniture ideas were like gone, and new furniture ideas were kind of instilled. But I can't remember, maybe they did have conversations like before of like who would be which piece of furniture, but I can't really remember. I don't think that was like casting 101 from it, but I think it was like, I think maybe they saw what people were like and they were like, oh yeah, you'd be good at that, or yeah,
you'd be an excellent bin.
You'd be an excellent bin. Reese was an amazing bin. Do you know what I mean? Like, but the way that Reese played the bin, or me, or Callum, I think we were the three that did it. Like, we all played it quite differently. So I think that was fun.
I just think that's lovely that we're having these kind of in-depth conversations about
bins.
About bins and furniture.
About what, on the one hand, it's like gender identity, queerness, amazing, like deep conversation. Then it's like, and I was a bin.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's what I feel like earlier we were speaking about, like the silliness, but combined with the vulnerability. I think those are kind of a perfect match.
I was thinking as well about the kind of moments of vulnerability and how many moments there were in Why Am I So Single where I thought, I don't know that I've seen that part of me represented on stage before. Yeah. And, you know,
what did you feel
moments,
like?
I mean, the obvious one for me would be Disco Ball, which is very much how I see myself. And I never thought that would be something that I'd see in musical theatre articulated in that way.
Yeah.
But then also, I think I'm not dissimilar to Oliver as a character. And there were so many moments in that where I thought, oh, actually, those are things that I haven't even thought about myself.
Yeah.
And now
it kind of is like reflected back to you. And I think that makes, like, I think a lot of sense for me too, is I guess because there's not as much queer representation, it's like it's harder to see yourself reflected back so often. So then when you see it, it's like actually kind of hits home maybe a bit more poignantly, because you really are like, oh, I've actually not seen that, or I've not, like you said, I've maybe not even considered that that's me, but now I'm seeing it and oh my gosh, that is me. And like Disco Ball for me too, like I remember in the workshops being like, wow, this feels different. It feels like I mean, I think in the show, like the narrative of the show it does it just comes, it doesn't come out of nowhere. It's so building the whole time to that point. But then when it happens, you're like, oh my gosh, we're really going there. And I think as a queer person, like, there was a certain level of, when we were dancing around the Oliver character, you had to disconnect by a certain point in rehearsals and stuff. You disconnected and you were like, okay, our intention here is to support what's going on. So we're like thinking this person is amazing and we want more and we want more, and they're funny and they're sparkly and we just want more and more, and kind of we become savage with that, that desire and lust and kind of taking from someone who's giving so much, and so we were in that kind of frenzied state. So when you were doing it, you had a certain thing you were doing within your body that felt like this revolving like energy inside you, which was crazy. Sometimes you'd be doing it and you'd come off and you'd be like, oh, like that was one that really was, I don't know if cathartic's the right word, but it was like, it felt like you kind of elevated, ascended, whatever.
Yeah.
But I guess alongside that, there's someone on a podium who's like breaking down and shattering in front of you. And we're, as the ensemble, we're not privy to that. Yeah. We're just expecting more of them. And I think that is something that a lot of queer people experiences. They are the funny person, the supportive friend, the one who is, masking maybe their vulnerability behind a big personality. And like, not that humor and everything is probably part of who they are, but there's also a lot of parts of them who they are that are harder to speak about, and so that they mask, and then it becomes too much, and it's like, oh, I'm actually breaking now, and this is how I actually feel. And I think that everyone who played Oliver, Joe, Jordan, Reese, like, really were incredible to be able to do that, to be able to push through that sort of, because even like, as I was speaking about, obviously the ensemble around acting in a certain way, which is kind of aiding the story but also kind of disconnected, or I guess not empathetic to the character, to Oliver. But as a swing, I watched it a lot.
Yes.
And so like, I remember, like, honestly, just would be in floods, would be sitting behind the desk, like in runs in the studio, like sobbing, like, or on the opening night, I think it was maybe the first preview, and actually there was an issue with sound, so we needed to stop, and then they started again, and the curtain came up, and honestly, it was like we were on like I could feel the adrenaline pumping through my body. I was like, it was so much to experience, like even being a part of it and seeing it on stage quite often. The last performance, I remember the swings, we actually joined in a couple of bits in the show. So like we did like the opening of Act 2 and the ending, but which is really nice to be like on stage with everyone on the final show. But we all were like, let's run up and watch Disco Ball for the last time. And honestly, it was like, it was incredible. And like, to see that happening on stage and just be like feeling the exhilaration, the kind of, I don't even know, but it just felt like so much was happening inside my body watching this. And I think on the last show, there was like a standing ovation for like 2 minutes. And like, I was crying, and I was just like, watching this number that I've watched so many times, or I've been in so many times. But when you're in it, especially as a swing, you're like in different positions. You're like, right, where am I? What am I doing? Whereas watching it, so I can imagine as an audience member watching it and just being like arrested by that.
Yeah, I saw it multiple times, and every time, I can't really describe it. It was almost like there was anger. I could feel anger inside, which is a very odd reaction to a musical theatre song, but there was something about it. Recognizing something that isn't fair. Yeah, I think that's like really natural. Like, I guess I probably felt it's like this. I think that's really natural to feel it, because it's this
I guess maybe anger, frustration at the world that is making someone feel like that. It's made me feel like that. Maybe, you know, like, and being like, oh my gosh, it doesn't need to be this way, but it is sadly that way a lot of times. And so you feel like, I think it's one of those experiences, I can't really describe it very well. You're feeling so much, but you kind of feel like, oh, you know, you feel this like exhaustion almost at the end, because you're like, I feel emotional, I feel vulnerable, I feel sad, I feel angry. And that's just watching it. Do you know what I mean? Like, to being like someone who played Oliver, like they are so brave, like all of them who did it. And like Toby and Lucy, like creating that number is brave and is and it's like what needs to be done, I think. Like more of that, you know.
If you want to follow us on social media, you can use queer.musicals on Instagram or Facebook, or you can follow me at Dr. James Lovelock on Instagram. I think the other thing that occurred to me just while you were talking there is thinking about the idea as well that in this show, the queer character is, I mean, I think they even sing it, but the queer character is the main character, the protagonist, rather than being the sidekick.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's so unusual. And I think there's something really lovely, you know, about the way that Nancy is played, and, you know, and it's a very supportive role in that, and, you know, really beautiful.
Yeah, so I feel like the portrayals of that, you know, like Lisa, Colette, Tash, like all of them, like had that. It was almost like, you know, like that was a fully fledged storyline as well for the Nancy, you know, with grief and loss and what that does to a person, and like, but it also allowed the queer character to be the protagonist, and I think. And kind of like that character and the actors who played the character like allowed for that space, which I think is so, and even the creation of the character, you know, it really, I think, is important to have that. And I love being around that, and just, you know, having a queer character at the helm of something to like tell their story and not be a side note or a kind of like, oh, and there's a bit of queerness there for the, you know, for the audience, for, you know, to tick a box, to actually like delve into it, you know, which I think maybe is more, I don't watch like a lot of plays, I would love to, but I feel like maybe in plays or in like TV and film maybe is more explored, but maybe in musical theatre isn't.
I think that's been the case. I mean, certainly there's, you know, there was a good 10 years where the only characters that you saw would be cis, white, gay, male characters. And they'd come on. I wrote a book chapter about it once, and I pointed out that there were 3 types of gay male character in musical theatre at the time, which was the drag queen, the drama queen, and the dancing queen. And the dancing queen to me is the one we're talking about, which is the character that comes on, does a number, and then never gets mentioned again. So many shows in the 2000s and the early 2010s have that. And yes, you know, for some, at least it was something, but also how lovely is it to have a show which explores a non-binary character in that amount of depth.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And like those characters you're kind of speaking of feel like, for me, like, I guess, yes, they are representing, you know, queerness, but it's in a very like distilled way that probably is for entertainment purposes, not for queer people, for straight people, you know, like, whereas like this was queer representation for queer people, and like, of course, for anyone to be able to like acknowledge and see and I guess learn from or have empathy for, but it wasn't for a heteronormative society just to be like, oh, and there's a funny gay, you know.
Absolutely. I've spoken about on the podcast before the problem of musical theatre being like an adaptive genre primarily, so always adapting stories that already exist.
Yes.
And at the moment, that tends to be films from the 1980s, 90s and 2000s, which are not known for having many gay characters in. And in fact, the gay characters that are in them are, as we've just discussed, cis white men and tend to be in the sidekick role. And so what's happening at the moment on the West End is that we have very limited representation, and sometimes there are shows that try and bring it to the foreground a bit, but we don't really have shows about those characters. But I was going to talk to you a little bit about But I'm a Cheerleader, which is an adaptive show, but that does have a queer character right in the centre. And I'd love to know more about your experience on that show, because I think that's another show that's kind of a queer-led or...
Definitely. Like, it was like, I loved it. It was like such a whirlwind going into it, because I was a swing again for that show, but it had already started. So it was like maybe a month into the run, but I think they were having like quite a lot of like illness and things like that. So they needed a couple of swings. So me and my friend Lauren, who I met on that job, we went in and became swings on it, and it was very fast turnaround. Like I don't know how many days of rehearsal, but not many, maybe a couple. And then I was like kind of on, and I think I maybe played like 2 or 3 tracks, but they all had like a storyline. So I feel like even it was, like, I guess it's like a comedy. I can't remember exactly when the film came out, but it's about conversion therapy camp and a girl who is cheerleader, popular, all those kind of stereotypical things that you wouldn't assume would lead someone to be gay. And so she's a lesbian, but she gets sent to this camp, basically. And that sounds very dark. And it is, like, obviously, like a very dark, traumatic thing. But this story is so full of light and laughter as well, because it's, a comedy, and it has, I think, similar things. Maybe like we were talking about Why Am I So Single? It has that contrast and that those two ideas can exist at once. And I guess so. Like, playing a swing was quite interesting on it, because all of those characters had their own journey with queerness, and and so it was beautiful to watch all of those different characters. And also, I think like in Why Am I So Single, there's a non-binary character, like in a lead, which is so amazing. And But I'm a Cheerleader, it's like queer women, like which I think a lot of the time aren't represented enough, or like it's a very narrow idea of what that is. And I think your friend Tanya as well, who's been on the podcast, who's amazing, like brilliant, and like she is a queer woman who is directing that as well. So I think that's really important. And like to have someone who has experience, or even if they don't have experience, like empathy and like understanding and education to then like lead with like authenticity. So I think that was really nice about But I'm a Cheerleader, is that it has a lot of different stories. It has queer women at the forefront, and it kind of brought together that poignant and also like funny, hilarious. Like, it is so funny. It was like, it's kind of ridiculous the way they convey a conversion therapy camp. Like,
it's very Disneyfied, isn't it? And all the boys are blue and girls are pink. It's done to a really stupid degree.
The music as well, like, is so good. And like Alex Sarmiento, who is a friend, and she choreographed, and she was just so like her choreography as well, like kind of to signify those different groups, or like the way it was so kind of, they were trying to be like prim and proper, or like really masculine at points, or like the girls all had like hoovers and like hoovering in time and stuff, and like kind of like ridiculing, I guess, the idea of like straightness and heteronormativity. Like, oh really, like, are we really aiming for this? Like, and so it was great.
I think my abiding memory of that section will be Evie Rose Lane, who was also on the podcast.
So brilliant.
rocking a baby with a
Oh my
face.
God, yeah, like
The most bored looking
face like thunder. Yeah, it was so good. Oh my God, Evie's amazing. Like, I mean, there was so many songs in that, like Wrestling, that song.
That's
you
a
know.
beautiful song.
Oh,
Yeah.
that Aaron sang. It was like,
Yeah, there's a lovely
oh my
version.
God.
Telly Leung singing that.
Yes,
on YouTube. So one, because there's not actually loads of "But I'm a Cheerleader" that's
out
you
there.
can
Yeah,
access. I think because of rights, but
yeah.
that performance is there. But there's so many moments. You were talking about choreography, and there was a dream ballet in that, wasn't there?
Oh my gosh, yes.
And I loved that so much because it was.
There was, yeah, and it was like, because I think the Dream Ballet kind of turned evil. Did it not? Like, this is like my swing brain took so much information in, and then after the show is like, right, okay, I need to go into another thing. But yeah, I can remember there was Dream Ballet. There was like, yeah, because there was a bit we kind of all came on, and it was like they were they were obviously having a dream, and we were these people move it. They had beds that we moved around.
That's right,
and,
yes.
you know, I guess there was a whole like simulated kind of like sex thing as well with how like how you have sex, and like
that's from the movie, isn't it?
Exactly.
Made into a song, which is quite wonderful.
It's so good, and like like I did the first. I know they did it again, but I did the first time round, and like Tiffany Graves did the like, and she was just so like hilarious, like with the like that kind of like the evil like matriarch of the like of the camp, and you will do this and you won't do that, and
it has a wonderful song called Perfect Little World as well.
Yes,
which is,
wow,
a little bit sort of evil Mary Poppins.
Very
vibe.
Definitely.
There. Yeah, it's a wonderful show. I mean, the other song that I love from it is, and again, it's a shame that it's not available in all else, but I think it's called, is it A Whole New Me? And it's set in the bedroom at night, and all of these queer kids are singing about how they want to be different. Yeah. And it's a really heartbreaking song, and it's set to almost to a lullaby. But again, that moment was really powerful, and again, something that I hadn't thought that I would see in musical theatre,
because they're also alone. I think like I remember being like spaced out in the on the stage, and like they're all feeling so alone, but they all have such a shared experience that they kind of don't, I guess, acknowledge at the start, and you don't expect to see that portrayed maybe.
Yeah, it's funny, I saw Fangirls last year, a couple
I
of
never
years
got
ago.
to see it.
That has a similar moment where they sing the song "Disgusting," which and they're all in their own bedrooms, all of the ensemble. Yeah, whether it's kind of a queer feminist story, and that's a lovely moment as well. And I think one of the things that allowing queer people to kind of be in charge of their storytelling is that you do get these nuanced moments.
Definitely.
Become unexpected, because we all know what they are, but we haven't necessarily had the space to articulate them yet.
Definitely. And like the space to like see them, like, I mean, I feel lucky to be able to kind of have been in those shows, to be able to see them and also like be a part of experiencing them through being a character. And I guess that with that representation, I remember after show one night on But I'm a Cheerleader, I think someone like put a little note under the door, which I was saying to you, and someone read it, and it was from a trans woman who had felt like represented on stage. And I don't think in But I'm a Cheerleader there's not like an explicit story, a story that's explicitly about trans experience, but I think that she felt within the queerness, she felt seen and acknowledged, and like that in a way that she hadn't in theatre before. And so I think that is, so it's kind of like heartbreaking and beautiful at the same time, because it's like, oh, why has that not happened before? But also like, that's amazing that it's happening now, and so hopefully it can keep happening,
This series of Represent has been recorded at the Content is Queen studio in Somerset House. Content is Queen is a podcast agency and community made up of women, people of colour and LGBTQIA+ people who wish to connect, create and collaborate using audio and podcasting. For more information, go to contentisqueen.org. I was going to mention, I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but there's a show that's been in workshop for quite some time called Unicorn, which is a show about a trans woman and a trans woman's experiences, kind of moving to a new city, away from her family. It's beautiful, and I really hope that it gets picked up somewhere. Because there's the other thing that we've been talking about a little bit this series is that there's quite a few shows with queer protagonists that are in workshop stages. And sometimes it's difficult for us to know where to look for them. So what I'm asking everybody that's guesting this time is to tell us a little bit about a show that they've workshopped that has queer protagonists, a queer story in it.
Well, I was really happy to be part of a show called Like a Rat, which you're like, what's it going to be about? But it's directed by Molly Stacey and Millie Foy, who are both incredible at what they do and like lovely people. And Molly was the associate director for Why Am I So Single, so that's how I know her.
I see, yeah.
But Reese Wilkinson, who I'm giving everyone's full names, but like, you know, so everyone knows who they are. But Reese is my friend from Why Am I So Single as well. Like, they are a choreographer, and so they were choreographing on it, but couldn't be there for a lot of it. So I was their associate, and so I did like the week of workshops, and we had like a couple of living room rehearsals, like at my house, because we live quite near to each other. And it was like, I mean, you'll understand when I explain the story, but a lot of like, we had towels and bags and like goggles and rubber gloves, you know. So basically, it's a story about a non-binary character called Billy who joins the women's swimming club at Hampstead Heath at the ponds. But they are non-binary, and they meet these kind of characters who are like all played by queer people. And the story, I guess, they make these relationships and they start to feel comfortable within this group. And then as the story progresses, it kind of breaks down at points because some of the people within the group want to make it biologically female only space, and so that then forces Billy to feel on the outside, and they have a conversation about that. And all the different characters, you know, have different opinions, I guess. Some are quite adamant on what they think about sex and gender, and some maybe are passively accepting that more strident approach, and so not being the best ally, you know, like it's kind of about that, and about, I guess, gendered spaces. And I mean, it was so much fun. But like a Rat, you can, you know, it's funny and it's amazing, and like it was a kind of devised piece. So they had some R&D days where they Molly and Millie wrote the script from that, and it was like, it was great. And the music is beautiful as well. So I think they've done a workshop of it. We had like a week, and they did like some showings. I was actually away for the showings, but then I think hopefully it'll have a life after that at some point. So I would definitely say watch out for that, because it would be, because it's just it's a really, I guess, like, it's quite a niche storyline, but actually has like, but really sprawls out into more conversations, you know, like Hampstead Heath ponds, like not everyone might know about that, but they can definitely see through this story what these conversations might be for like people with gendered spaces. And I mean, there's also like a camp number called Ladies of the Lake, which is the one with and you know, these three characters of, you know, are showing Billy how they get in the lake and what they do. And we had to come up with how we might swim on land above the surface. Obviously, we're walking around in a rehearsal studio and actually trying to create swimming or treading water. But yeah, it was so much fun to do that,
That's great. Well, we'll definitely look out for Like a Rat and see how that progresses. I've just got one more question for you, Owen, and that's what would you like to see from musical theatre in the future?
Well, I think there's a few things, but I think I'd love it to be accessible for people to come and see theatre in a way that I think the other mediums might be a bit more accessible for people. And there's obviously people doing amazing work to make it happen. And but I think pricing for like musical theatre and things like that, there are things to help people, but I think so it's more widely available for people of different backgrounds, socioeconomic, so that it's not just privileged, people, or it can be something that if someone has an interest, they are able to see that interest through. And then that might also encourage accessibility within people who take it up as an interest and pursue it, not just to witness it, to actually be a part of it, because then I think that'll change things from the inside out. And definitely I feel like that is happening, and there's people who have really facilitated that, and I hope that continues to happen, because I just think that if we can show different people within the industry, then those people, their voices will be heard and should be heard, to create different stories. And I think that then leads on to another hope, would be to tell stories that are nuanced and interesting and representative of people in the world we live in. And I think that obviously requires risk and bravery, but really it is just the world. Like, there is different people existing in the world, and I think I recently watched What It Feels Like to Be a Girl, which is by Paris Lee, based on her memoir, and I just think that was a brilliantly executed, constructed, crafted distillation of her experiences, maybe throughout growing up, and to watch that and that represent her own story, but also like reflect it back to people, and in a UK setting, which maybe is more relatable for some people. Or recently watched Monroe Bergdorf's documentary, which was also incredibly nuanced and brilliant, and with Jazz Terry in it as well. And it was like, it would be fantastic if those kind of stories could be moved into maybe a musical theatre context. And I don't know how easy that is, but I think hope for stories such as those to be moved into musical theatre, and also for playfulness, silliness, enjoyment, and to be, like, selfishly, I would love to be in rooms that are full of people who are just happy to be collaborative and engaged and generous and kind. And I think that, as I would hope for more spaces within musical theatre that facilitate that, because I think the people like completely are there, and if there's stories to be told and people to kind of come together to tell those stories, they might have vulnerability and darkness and difficulty in the character stories, but also there will be light and playfulness and in it too, and how that's constructed. So I would hope that more different types of stories can be told. So I think those are a few things.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Owen. It's been lovely to have you on the show today.
Well, thank you. It's been lovely to chat to you.
And thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you soon. Bye. Thank you for listening to Represent, the Queer Musical Theatre podcast. The research for this series is funded by the British Academy Early Career Researchers Network Seed Fund and supported by Sheffield Hallam University. The episodes were recorded at the Content is Queen podcast studios at the Makerversity at Somerset House. For more information, go to contentisqueen.org. Next week, we are joined by Why Am I So Single alumni Josh and Angelo Amanya and Finton Flynn, who are both part of the UK tour of Everybody's Talking About Jamie in 2024. See you then.